أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد بعثنا في كل أمة رسولا أن يعبدوا الله واجتنبوا الطاغوت فمنهم من هدى الله ومنهم من حقت عليه الضلالة فسيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين إن تحرص على هداهم فإن الله لا يهدي من يضل وما لهم من ناصرين. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, For we assuredly sent amongst every people a messenger with the command, Serve Allah and eschew evil. Of the people were some whom Allah guided and some on whom error became inevitably established. So travel through the earth and see what was the end of those who denied the truth. If thou art anxious for their guidance, yet Allah guideth not such as he leaves to stray, and there is none to help them. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Islam for Europeans. I'm your host, Robert. Moving on to reason number 10, the final in our top 10, although there are probably several other reasons as to why European Muslim subcommunities are needed, and that is feasibility and tangible results. So, this is probably one of the most important issues because there are so many ideas out there as to what is actually going to help amortize converts, what is help them going to stay in the Muslim community, stay within Islam itself, and not just that, but also how the Muslim community addresses Islamophobia, the relationship between Islam and the West, and also the ideas of what people think will save the West itself. So, whenever people look at organizational change, they have to look at several things. One is that what have we been doing? Has it been successful? What are the problems, and how do we change that? And what new ideas can we present in order to look at addressing issues in a different way? But organizational change is very difficult to occur. If anyone's seen the movie or read the book Moneyball, it's a great book and story about organizational change and how difficult it can be, and how the same problems can keep going on for generations because there's a culture that is developed, um, within a traditional sport such as baseball. The traditional scouting method was just um, not effective in keeping players, but it just lasted for such a long time. And that's what we see with um, mosques and Islamic organizations in their attempt to keep converts, if they have something in place like that, at all in the first place. Um, and this is not to denigrate the efforts of some mosques that have packages or um, systems in place in order to try to keep converts within the fold. But we need to be completely honest here. Most of the times, converts have a very difficult time staying within the Muslim community, and especially for converts of European descent. But we're going to address why our approach of having a subcommunity has and does work currently with other groups of converts, and would work just as well with us. So let's take a look at some of the ways that the mosques try to help out converts, and see why these methods just have not simply not been sustainable. One way that they try to address the issue is by funding, right? So they'll whenever they get new converts, they'll try to throw money at them, and try to have all these different programs. But it's just not sustainable, just because mosques are usually running on these shoestring budgets to begin with. They have so many other issues like poverty and um, you know uh, uh, keeping lighting open. I mean, there's no waqf, there's no government funding to these mosques. A lot of them are just making ends meet by the baskets that they pass across, after Juma prayer. So if you're going to take 80% of that and give converts these new convert packages and these free trips to Mecca when they've just converted, all these different free iftars and everything, which are great. I mean, and a lot of this time it's for the whole community, but it doesn't really address their main issues, and that is specifically having to deal with their non-Muslim family and community. Because usually the reactions are so varied. Some of our family members have a very positive reaction to our conversion. Some are neutral, some are very negative. But the way that the mosques try to deal with that, if they do at all, is to have them to come to a mosque. And a lot of the times they just don't want to go. So it doesn't really address our main issues here. I mean, our idea would just be at a fraction of the cost. I mean, you could take that money that you're spending on converts, particularly European converts, and spend it on security cameras or new carpets for the mosque, or helping orphaned Muslim children and stuff like that. So that's definitely one reason why our method is just a lot more sustainable, because it won't cost as much. It's basically self-sustaining. But there's other methods that mosques will usually try, like the buddy system. And this goes back to the when the original Muslims, the Sahaba, emigrated from Mecca to Medina, and there were a lot of new converts in Medina. So what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would do was he would set up one of the Ansar with one of the Muhajirun, the ones who emigrated to Medina, and they had this kind of the buddy system going, where the Muslims, the Muhajirun, who were from Mecca, would assist the new convert in Medina. But you can't just directly copy and paste this idea, especially when you're dealing with completely different cultures. I mean, yeah, I mean the Muslims who want to do this, who want to sign up and help out a new convert, that's great. I mean, that we really appreciate that they want to do that. But there's not much that an immigrant Muslim, or even first or even second gen Muslim, is going to know about what exactly the Muslim convert, especially European converts, are going through, and vice versa. I mean, we don't really understand their problems either. So I mean, when you have a medical problem, your GP will usually refer you to a specialist. I mean, someone who knows that knows that particular part of the body inside and out. But taking someone, taking the Muslim kid with the Muslim family, um, like an entire Muslim relatives and national history about Islam and culture, based in Islam, and trying to have him solve the issues of, the redneck convert who has a mother or a father who wants to come after him with a shotgun. I mean, I don't understand why they think this is going to, be the best, um, like way for that. And even if the parents are accepting, I mean, there's still other challenges they have to deal with. I mean, waking up for iftar every morning, and it's just completely different paradigms that you're dealing with here. So, and even just having one buddy, like it's necessary but not sufficient. I mean, a lot of these converts are just, they've had so much lost capital. I mean, they feel ostracized from their family, their community. They've probably, are isolated to begin with. I mean, one friend is great. I mean, sure, it helps out a lot, and but it doesn't solve like the main total issues that they're having. Also, what they'll do is they'll try to do convert packages. So they'll give them like this $200 gift package of like a musalla. They'll give them like a carpet, all these books, like really cool, mosque pens, and and the mosque is probably thinking, oh yeah, this is great. This is going to keep, converts here. It's a great gift, and, the heart's in the right place. I mean, they definitely, want the money to go to, to a good place. But, like some of these converts, they'll convert to Islam and they're hiding it from their family. They'll find this convert package and then throw everything out. Um, so like I said, it's just a square peg for a round hole, and it doesn't really address the main issue. I mean, it's nice, you know, and a lot of these books are just way too advanced for Muslims as well. I mean, for converts as well. I mean, and this is another issue we'll delve into deeper a little bit, but usually when it comes to mosques, they kind of siphon off converts that are really, not willing to dive in 100%. And or it could be, the other way around. If you reverse engineer it, the converts that come in, who are willing to dive right in, these have, these guys have like a particular personality, as opposed to the the person who reads about Islam but is really, reluctant to go to a mosque. A lot of the times these are the brothers who, willing to wear the thobe and change the way they dress, change the way they act, change the way they talk, change everything about themselves and immerse themselves completely into a totally new community, which some people are able to do. And a lot of the times the mosque will see these one or two success stories and think that everything's hunky dory. But just a lot of people who learn about Islam and maybe take Shahada at your mosque booth, these aren't the, they're really struggling just to even pray once a day. I mean, and that's something that they need help with. But you know, when we look at the way that mosques try to amortize converts, is you're diving in, you're practicing fully 100%, and this is why the mosque community be like, oh, mashallah, like this brother is way better than we are. Like he's really energizing the community. He's a celebrity. Um, and that's the life basically that I led, at the mosque for several years. But like I said, it's not a sustainable model. You're trying to fill the gaps with all this lost social capital that you have with your family, and just trying to fulfill that, with entering into a totally different community who's great and warm and loving, but at the same time, nothing can really take the place of the people who gave you birth, raised you since you were a baby, and even the community that you were around. Um, so without taking that sort of like community approach, it really is going to fall flat on its feet. And then 5-10 years down the road, this convert that was so energetic ends up feeling so much shame that they don't want to come back to the mosque because they feel like they let them down. Maybe they started drinking again, or they went back to their old lifestyle, and the mosque just throws their hands up in the air and says, where do we go wrong? What do we have to do? And a lot of the times they'll just be like, you know what, let's forget it. I mean, trying to support converts is just not working out, and that's when they just kind of just give up. Yeah, and the ultimate epitome of that is normally marrying into a Muslim family, which is what mosques normally think. Okay, they've lost their family, they've their families rejected them, they've ostracized them, and the best way to resolve that is have them just simply marry into a Muslim family, which a lot of converts will do on their own sometimes, if they're single. But if you've watched the video, I've already addressed that, with born convert disaster marriages. Some of them work out, but again, most of them do not. It's a systemic problem in that converts really don't have a Muslim family or community to screen for potential spouses. And since we're told that we can't date, you're just basically sometimes marrying these total strangers. And yeah, and again, it's not like Western liberalism and non-Muslim society where you'll date someone from a totally different background from another part of the world, and if it doesn't work out, you can just move on to and date somebody else. But for converts, marrying into a totally different family, a different community, and it doesn't work out, and a lot of the times you get screwed over. A lot of the times that's when the convert they'll take off the hijab, they'll start practicing, and then end up not being Muslim altogether, right? Whereas a lot of times when we look at born Muslims who don't practice at all, the default position for them is they're basically just a non-practicing cultural Muslim. They still have a Muslim family, but they don't pray, they don't fast. They do all the haram things, they drink alcohol, but everyone still considers them to be Muslim, right? So they still have that protective factor of a Muslim family, and they know that they can go back to Islam whenever they want. But for converts, the default position is going back to your old non-Muslim lifestyle, and it's a huge problem. And I don't think Muslim communities fully understand the reason for that, and that's one of the major reasons why um, converts from any background need a sub community from people from the same culture. So it would be a lot better to fit in. Okay. Um, and I talked about mosques and Muslim organizations and stuff, but when we're talking about universities, that's a different story. So now you're talking about trying to fit in as a white convert with the woke left, where you have a lot of cultural Muslims who are not practicing at all. And the only way to fit in with them is to kind of be this like leftist white savior, like a Muslim Robin DiAngelo. You're basically a walking contradiction when you're saying, all white people are racist. I've even heard some of these white converts say all white converts are racist. They make the exception for themselves, because they've quote unquote unpacked their knapsack or whatever. But when we look at converting in a mosque setting, the way to get dopamine hits to feel that you're accepted is to keep practicing your religion. And then the Muslim community is like, oh, mashallah, that's great. And then you yourself feel closer to Allah and more connected with the community. But for the woke left, it's parroting the standard leftist kind of identity politics, and also like kind of social justice causes, like pro-Palestinian causes, anti-colonial causes, and things like that. Black Lives Matter, and that's what makes the white converts who choose to ally themselves with the woke left helps them fit in for a little while. And some of them stay there for years. They'll champion these causes, but at the same time, like I said, they're kind of a walking contradiction. Um, they accuse white people of being like, or white converts who follow the mosque route, of being white saviors. Um, that they keep rambling on about white supremacy, but at the same time, they're usually the ones at the forefront, you know, um, giving all these interviews. I could go on. I mean, again, I don't want to rail against, the woke left and Muslims who occupy like these university positions. Again, not all the MSAs are falling prey to this, but a lot of them are. And when you have these cultural Muslims who have a lot of completely sometimes justified anger against the Anglosphere and what they did to their countries and things like that. And I'm not trying to say that how they feel is unjustified, but trying to fit into those spaces as a white convert, especially a white male convert. I don't know how they do it. Honestly, I don't know how they last like weeks in that type of environment. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, like I said, like the consequences of these, failed attempts that are just not sustainable models, just not feasible models. Like I said, a lot of converts, especially European converts, they fall off the wagon. They go back to drinking and they just feel so much shame because the Muslim community has given them so much that they just feel like they don't want to go back. And like as much as they want to help, and that's great that they do want to help, you're always going to feel a bit like an outsider, like a minority of one, basically. Yeah. And meanwhile, your own community is calling you a race traitor. They're calling you a sellout because they basically feel that you've left one community to go to another. And even, we're seeing Muslim spokespeople, even the, traditional Muslims, like sort of use the white equals non-Muslim or European equals non-Muslim like POC equals Muslim dichotomy, even in their own speeches, and again, it's we don't. I'm not here to criticize them. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there are very few of us, and we're not an organized group in any way, shape, or form yet. So it's almost like, yeah, a lot of people think when you convert to Islam, you're not white anymore. I've heard that, in mosques, and it's just not a sustainable model to think this way, you know. And for the white people who do convert to Islam and they change who they are and their identity and how they talk and how they eat and how they act, like a lot of normal white people are going to look at that person. And even though they say, oh, wow, like they have such a positive view of them, they've quit drinking, they've really reformed their life. They look at them and they go, this is what it would take in order for me to convert to Islam. I would have to dive right in, not just religiously, but also culturally, in order to take that jump. So you're just making it more and more barriers to entry. And I guess one of the biggest barriers to entry is when you look at the African American and Latino community, who comprise, mainly of converts as well. They have an identity, a Muslim identity based on their background. For our African American brothers and sisters, they were the flag bearers of Islam in the United States. Look at all the Muslim heroes they have: Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali. We look at Latino Muslims; they think back to Andalus. For their connection to Islam is through Andalus, and the cognates between in Spanish and Arabic. But for Europeans, it's like at this point, it's almost like we're the antithesis of Islam. So we are here to change the game, right? We have a rich history of European converts. We have Bosnia, we have Albania, we have Russia. There are minority Muslim populations in Lithuania, in Bulgaria. They've converted as communities, even if they're minorities in their own country as Muslims. They've kept their own culture. They've kept the food. They've kept the traditions. The wedding ceremonies are very elaborate. So yeah, I mean, this is what we need to do basically, is to have a sub community. And it'll show that we can take care of ourselves. We don't have to spend enormous amounts of money. We can use our own houses, our own apartments for get-togethers, for learning circles, for doing, halakat, to learn about Islam. Like we can be there if somebody needs a place to stay. And plus, like I said, for European converts, the main goal is when you first convert, is to repair the relationship with your family. And they're going to feel most comfortable being around other European Muslims, right? So come over to our house, bring your dad, bring your mom, bring your aunt, your uncle, and just have them hang out with us, see how Islam has changed us, from the inside, but still, have just filtered out the bad things, but kept the good things about who we are, right? And that'll make it easier for their family members to soften their hearts towards an Islam within their cultural context and within their cultural context, right? And like I said, we're not to the Muslim community. I know the knee-jerk reaction is, this is going to divide the Ummah. But I mean, like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're going to still come to Jummah prayer. We're still going to come to Eid prayer. You're still going to see us on Eid. But this is what we need to do. And, next time we go, we'll be bringing a lot more people with us from our own community. Okay. And yeah, I mean, the template is there. I mean, we see the enormous success of Muslim groups from the African American community, from the Latino community, who are just growing at an enormous pace. I mean, they can't even keep up. I mean, every day they have like 10 shahadas for people from their own community. Yeah. So you just basically use that as a template. Like I said, even among born Muslims, every diaspora group of born Muslims, they have their own organizations, their own mosques, their own restaurants, their own social circles. So if we had the same thing, we could have a sustainable model where, for example, if we had our own restaurants, there's a place where we're making money for the community, where we have get-togethers, where we can get people a job. And yeah, so it's basically it's a sustainable model. It's a feasible model. It doesn't take much. I mean, the converts are there. I mean, they're there already. They agree with the model. Um, and yeah, all it'll take is just a little bit of vision, and you'll see that it's going to grow, inshallah. Okay, and yeah, and tangible, you'll see it. Once we see people start converting en masse, or even the fact that you have people who are angry, family members who are angry about Islam, but it's gone for them from a negative 100 to a negative 80 or a negative 70. You'll see the results will show very quickly and very easily. Okay, and like I said, there's other tangible results you can see in lowering Islamophobia. Like I said, these are our people. It's our responsibility to give dawah to them. These are the people you see on the bus. These are the people we play tennis with. These are the people we play bowling with, right? And we want to show them that Islam has positive things that can offer to our lives. It shows people that, Muslims are not violent. They're not here to take over the country. They're not here to take over the culture. They're not here to kill you. And yeah, I mean, and that's what it's going to take, basically. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Yeah, and I mean, like, if we look at these attempts to save, quote unquote, the West, these Islamophobic nationalist groups are doing, it's just not a sustainable model what they're trying to do either. I mean, they can't even get enough votes to get one seat in, like, the national houses. And if they do, they're still not going to be able to solve the problem, because there's just going to be so much opposition, and it's just going to create so much conflict with the liberal left. And you're just a political solution at this point is just not feasible for anybody, really. So, this solution that we're attempting is, it's just sort of, like, I guess you could tell, like a backdoor solution. It addresses all the issues that you have. I mean, with the Industrial Revolution, there's the West has just lost its spiritual core. It's lost its culture. Offering Islam as a third option to Europeans is going to save them from anti-Islam nationalism. And we're missing a golden opportunity by not doing that, because if you don't reach out to them, they're going to end up joining these angry anti-Islam nationalist groups, that are in the mainstream, but at the same time, their main focus is their anger towards Islam as a religion. So, yeah, so that's all I have for today. Feel free to subscribe to Islam for Europeans. Thank you for your patience in dealing with me and trying to get these last 10 reasons finished. I'll do a run through as a conclusion later on. But yeah, reason number 10, feasibility, sustainability, and tangible results is, I would think, one of the huge reasons that we need a European Muslim sub-communities living alongside Muslim communities in the West. I'm your host, Robert. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.